everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday. It is March 30th, 2022, and this is episode 214. My name is Carol. My Ravelry name is Knits and Pearls, and I'm coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, just a little ways east of Vancouver. Surprise! I did not intend to record this week, and in fact I told you that I would not see you until next week. But I have lots of things to show and tell, and I had the time and opportunity, so I decided why not go ahead and record this week after all, and that will save all of us from an extra long episode next week. Before I get into all the yarny goodness, just a reminder that the Year of the Stash Make-Along is taking place in the Ravelry group, and it's coming up on the end of the month. And so if you have any outstanding projects for the February Personal Sock Yarn Club, you have till tomorrow night to get them in, midnight your time. And then I will be announcing winners for all the various categories on the next episode. So I'm going to break with tradition. I'm going to start with a weaving project this week. Partly because it is a finished project and partly because it relates to another finished project that I have to talk about. So last time you saw this, it was still on the loom. This is my deep fall scarf. I wove it out of two colorways of Fibernyph Dyeworks yarn, or two types and two colorways. So I warped the loom with the ridge top fingering yarn in the soot colorway, and then the weft, which is the horizontal, is twist fingering in deep fall. And rather than just let the stripes unfold traditionally, I decided to split the yarn between two shuttles, and I began weaving at the beginning of a stripe on one of the shuttles, and then I began halfway through a stripe of the same color on the second shuttle, and I alternated two passes with each shuttle. So in some areas where I was weaving with the same color, you had a solid block of color, and then when one ran out, it began a new color. So here you can see alternating with this wine color and the gold. And then there's also additional striping from the twist yarn. It has sections that are plain and then sections that have this twisted nature to them, and so they added additional stripes and interest. So I got to try out a couple of new tools with this project. The first was my wavy shuttle, and I put a video in last episode to show you how it worked, and I'll insert a picture here just to remind you of what the yarn looked like on the loom. You could see a definite wave to it. Unfortunately, basically as soon as I took the weaving off the loom, everything relaxed and the wave began to disappear. And then it disappeared even more once I had wet finished the scarf. Wet finishing is basically like blocking in knitting or crochet. Just soak your work and then lay it out to dry. So that was unfortunate. What was interesting though is that where these valleys occurred in the weaving, the warp yarn appeared more concentrated, and that retained that look through the weaving. So you can see where that happened, and even here along the side. So it added sort of some additional interest. It looks like some more striping lengthwise. So that was kind of interesting. I also got to try out another of my new toys, and that was my fringe twister. And wow, does that ever make this process a lot faster and a lot easier, and I can really see myself getting a lot of use out of that in the future. So I will just show you the length of it so you can see all the colors as they wove up. And kind of a happy accident, because of where I began and ended my weaving, when I took it off the loom, this yellow is basically halfway. So when I fold the scarf in half, oops, you can see where it lines up. So that wasn't planned, but I really like how that worked. So yeah, even though it didn't retain its waviness, I don't consider it a failure by any stretch. And I always look at these projects, especially since I'm such a beginner weaver, as a learning experience. And I definitely also enjoyed just the process of weaving with that wavy shuttle. And I will try it again in the future. And even if it doesn't stay, I do like this effect with the vertical striping. So it's well worth doing. So once I took this off the loom, I had quite a bit of the twist remaining, and I still do. So I decided to knit a hat from it. So partly because I had lots left over, and partly because I am doing this project for the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Meomel, which is the make it your own make along. And if you use Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn, if you use up to 200 grams in each, or a minimum of 200 grams in each quarter, you get a special skein at the end of the year. So I was a little bit shy of my 200 grams, so I decided to knit a hat. So my first thought was to do a hat that had either some waves or some chevrons in it in order to make the yarns striped, because I had wanted that to happen with the scarf, to have the waves. And even though they didn't last, I thought it would be an interesting way to work with the yarn. So I started out with a pattern called Chevron Beret by Wendy Easton. And I cast on the brim with the leftover ridge top fingering, this gray color. But when I increased stitches and started to work the wave pattern, what was happening is all of these twisted areas were all knitting up on top of each other. And it was just, I'm ending up with this big dark clump going up the hat, and I didn't like that. So then I think maybe I adjusted my needle size, or maybe I just started knitting, I can't remember. Long story short though, is I ended up just doing a plain slouchy hat. And with the number of stitches, I think what I ended up doing is just going up a needle size, and I didn't increase the number of stitches. And then the stripes ended up actually knitting up really nicely. All of these dark areas were nicely distributed around the hat. Because I had a different number of stitches than the Chevron Beret called for, I looked at the Barley Light pattern by Tin Can Knits just to get a sense of how long to knit, and then sort of how they did their decreases. And so I based my length and my decrease pattern loosely on that pattern. Had a different number of stitches, it wasn't exactly the same. So in the end, my hat was kind of an amalgamation of the Chevron Beret, the Barley Light, and then my own stuff. So I would show that hat to you, except that I showed it to my daughter-in-law when she came over, and asked her if she wanted it, and she was happy to take it off my hands. So I thought it looked better on her than it looked on me, although it was fine on me. It looked really good on her, and she was thrilled with it. I had taught her to knit earlier, well, I guess last fall, and she is now actually knitting hats. She's knit one for herself, one for her friend. She's working on one for her mom, and I think part of her liked the instant gratification of having a ready knit hat. So anyway, I've got pictures here of it on both of us, so you get an idea of what it looked like, but it is no longer in my possession. She was thrilled. She put it on. She wore it inside for the rest of the evening, and then they were heading out, stopping somewhere on their way home, and she had said, oh, I'm gonna wear it wherever they were going to. So she was happy. That made me happy. I have a third finished project. I don't think you even saw this one casted on either. Yeah, no, because after I had finished my socks last week, my green and glorious ones, I needed another pair of socks. So I actually, I ended up going through my stash. Now, I mentioned I worked on the hat and scarf for the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Meomel, and it's your make it your own make along, so you can choose your own theme. And I've chosen my theme for the whole year. It's going to be the 4 seasons. So what I did is I went through my stash and I collected all these yarns that I felt had, you know, that could be used for that. So things like, let's see, there's a Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn called Winter Deep. Have some Christmas yarn here. Figured that would count. This one's Frost Wall, so it's frosty colors. I've got this Fiber Nymph Dye Works Zinnia colorway I've had forever. Figured that would be good for summer. I have this one, it's April Showers. In fact, I'm thinking of knitting that up in April. I just need to find just the right pattern for it. This one is called, I think, Spring Mix. So anyway, I decided to pull out all the ones I had and just put them in this big bag. And then I can draw from that when I'm looking for a new project. It won't be restricted to this, but if I'm looking to cast on another pair of socks or whatever, there's some yarns to choose from. So in doing so, I came across this skein that I bought back in 2010 when our extended family all went to Alaska. We went on an Alaskan cruise to celebrate my mom and dad's 50th anniversary. So they went, and all of my sisters and spouses, and Cameron and I. So I had picked up some yarn in the various stops, and this I got in Ketchikan, in a store that's no longer in business, sadly. It's called Raven Frog Fiber Arts. It was handmade in Sitka, Alaska. And sadly, it doesn't look like they're dyeing anymore either. But this is the Bare Feet colorway, and the color is Dark Winter Nights. So I thought it was perfect. So there's this beautiful deep blue, purple, and black. So it is a, I don't know if you can see that, it's a 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon blend. So I just cast those on right away, and I just knit up a pair of plain vanilla socks, and they're done already. They didn't take long at all, but look how beautiful they are. I'm gonna bring that closer to see if you can catch, oh, there you go. You can see those colors in there. I love how it knit up. They just almost micro striped. And then I did a German short row heel. I didn't do the same one as I had done on my Green and Glorious socks. I did one that did not involve working again across the instep, but was more similar to my yarn over short row heel that I do. But interestingly, I ended up with a little hole on one side of the instep on one sock and on the other side of the instep on the other sock. So I don't know what I did wrong, but I just afterwards took a little length of yarn, just wove them through and closed up those holes. So there are no holes on either of them now. I had knit a pair of socks soon after our trip out of another skein of the Bare Feet that I had bought in the same shop. And they're still going strong, believe it or not. That's what, 12 years ago, and I've used them a lot. The only difference is that they have faded quite a bit. So I'm expecting that this color may fade over time, but even so, it is so beautiful. And it's kind of a shame it's been sitting in my stash all this time, but that's the whole point of doing the Year of the Stash. And I just like the extra element of finding ways to incorporate some of my stash yarns into my Meomel. So that was like a win-win for me. Speaking of winter, and we're gonna move on to works in progress. Another project that I am doing for the, well, for both the Meomel and the Year of the Stash is a hat called Winter Trails. It's by Alana Dacos of Never Not Knitting, and I'll put a photo of it in here. I did not print it off on the pattern. One thing, she has beautiful patterns with lots of lovely touches to them, but they're very color heavy and print heavy. So all I did was print off a single page of the chart and the instructions. So you'll have seen a picture of it. I am knitting mine out of this Sweet Georgia Yarns Superwash, or yeah, it is Superwash. It's the Superwash Worsted. And this is a unique dye lot. I got this yarn as part of one of the, every year they do a kind of a grab bag type of sale, and I had received it in there. So there is no colorway that it's supposed to be, but it's a beautiful navy, almost royal, and it will look great with my red winter coat. And I also have a woven scarf, my first woven scarf ever, that has this color in it too, so it'll go really well together. So this is obviously a worsted weight. It's 100% superwash merino. So I cast this on last night. I got the ribbing done, and then I've just started the cabling. I don't know how well that will show up. Should be able to see that. It looks very small on the needles because of the ribbing, but I did kind of stretch it out and compare it to a couple of other hats that I own, and it looks like it will fit fine. One thing I did do though is I added an extra inch to the ribbing because I want the hat to be a little bit longer and have a little bit of slouch. That style seems to suit me best. So other than that, I'm just gonna knit it as written. And I was thinking about my dad. I'm not sure why I put this little hockey stick stitch marker on to mark the beginning and end of my rows. Not sure why he was on my mind yesterday, but he was. And he was a huge hockey fan. So that's for my dad. But the hat is for me. I have another work in progress. I cast on a new pair of socks because I finished those winter night ones, and then I needed something to work on before April 1st when the next edition of the Personal Sock Yarn Club begins. So I decided to just kind of get a jump on my gift knitting. I pulled out this Arna and Carlos Regia Lofoten yarn. This is color 03879 in the Moschenes, I think maybe how you say it, Moschenes. And that's how it's knitting up so far. So I am making these for my brother-in-law Ed. His birthday's not till November, so there's no rush. I will just have these as a sock on the needles that I can work on when it's convenient. That's one thing. Once I finished my green and glorious socks, then I think I would cast on these after that. And then I had a point where I didn't have any plain knitting to work on. And it was just like, I always need to have something on hand. Oh, I know what it was. It was after I finished the these ones, Winter's Night ones. And I hadn't decided yet what I was going to cast on. I was looking at yarn, couldn't make up my mind. And then I said to Cameron, oh, I guess I just won't bother now. I'll just sit. I think we were just sitting talking or something. And then I was like, no, I can't stand it. I need to go and find some yarn and cast it on. So this was an easy one, and got those going. So yeah, these I'll just work on till they're done, kind of throughout the year, off and on, no rush. All right, I have one more. Oh, I guess I should just say 72 stitch on a 2mm needle. These were 64 stitches, 2mm needle. My project pages have all the information. So yes, I have one more work in progress to talk about, and I filmed a little clip that I'm going to put in here right now. All right, last but not least, this is Throwback Thursday by Mary Annarella of Lyrical Knits. This design is available to knit in 2 weights, worsted and fingering. This is the fingering weight version, although interestingly enough, the original sample was knit in sport weight, as was this. I used Malabrigo Arroyo in the Jupiter colorway. So this sweater is constructed from the top down, has this rolled neck, contiguous set-in sleeves, this cable and lace panel that runs down each side, and then it has a split hem. So at first glance, this looks like a finished sweater, but if you look a little more closely, you'll see there are ends hanging off down here, and that is because after washing and blocking it, I've decided I want a little more length. And so I'm going to take back the ribbing, add about 1 inch of stockinette, and then redo the hem. This wasn't exactly a surprise that this was going to happen. While I was working on the body, I was happy with the length when I finished. And it wasn't until after I'd finished one sleeve and I realized there was quite a bit of difference between the length of the sleeve and the length of the sweater. And for me, most of the time, my sleeves and my sweater bodies are usually about the same length. So I compared it to this one. This is one of my 2 Sew Fadeds by Andrea Mowry, and this sweater fits me perfectly. So when I compared it to the Throwback Thursday, I realized that this one was about 1 inch longer, and I really like how it sits. I'm already finding myself always wanting to tug this down. Now, if I had just put it on right after taking it off the blocking mats, it probably would have been long enough, and maybe even too long, because it stretched out quite a bit when I blocked it. But what I like to do with my superwash sweaters is after I take them off the blocking boards, I will put them briefly in the dryer with a couple of towels and just let everything kind of spring back how it's supposed to be. So you can see that the length of the sleeves is just perfect. And I could even get away with this length. I feel like it just needs to be that little bit longer. I was worried while I was knitting this sweater that I was going to run out of yarn. And so I didn't make the body any longer because I thought I might end up with 3/4 length sleeves. But as you can see, I've got full length sleeves and I have plenty to add on to the body. So I figure, why not? It's, you know, it's worth it for a sweater that I'm going to love 100% instead of like, you know, 95%. So yeah, I'll just do that and then I'll just ride a little bit longer and I'll be much happier with it. So if all goes to plan, by the time I record again, probably about this time next week, this will be done. I have to say I am really looking forward to that because I'm kind of tired of working on this. By the time I finished the sleeves, I was done. And so, well, I'm not really looking forward to, you know, ripping back and knitting on this again. I know it will be worth it in the end. What I didn't mention is on that sweater, the skeins were all quite different. And so I alternated either 2 or 3 strands throughout the entire sweater. And I think it paid off because even though you can see some differences over different parts of the sweater, there's no obvious line where one skein of yarn ends and another begins. So I'm pretty happy with the way that it knit up. Upcoming, as I mentioned, the month is drawing to a close, and so the April Personal Sock Yarn Club is going to start on April 1st, and I thought it'd be fun to open up my April yarn. This one, I have no idea. I do not remember at all what's in here. So you and I will both be surprised. All right, here it comes. Oh yeah, this will be fun. This is Opal. It's a Monet one, and I don't know if I have a colorway. It's color 9684. It's part of the Monet collection, and I'll try and remember to look up what the colorway name is and put it here at the bottom of the screen. I'm thinking I can easily, with these colors, tie it into my Four Seasons Mio Mal too. That definitely looks like spring or summer to me. And there you can see how it's gonna knit up. So that'll be fun. Another thing I'm going to be doing is casting on a pair of socks for my sister, the one who lives in Toronto. So I asked her if she wanted, for her birthday, it's at the end of April, I asked her if she wanted socks, shawl, or woven scarf, and she chose socks. And so she and her husband are coming out to visit in May and come out to the cabin on the Victoria Day weekend with us. So I don't have to have them done until she comes, and so I'm also going to go through my stash and figure out a pair of socks to make for her. I guess I could make these ones, but I really like this yarn myself, so I think I'm going to probably keep this for myself, and then I'll find her another skein for her to cast on. So definitely a couple new pairs of socks in my future. And then, as I mentioned, I'd like to cast on this April Showers yarn that was given. Well, I bought a skein of this at Knit City, and then knitter friend sent me another skein of it. So I had given one skein away and kept one for myself, and it's time I knit it up. So I've just been trying to find just the right shawl pattern to make with it and haven't really settled on anything yet. So that is also in my future. So I got lots of fun, lots and lots of fun projects coming up. All right, that is it for all the nitty talk. What's been going on around here? Well, for one thing, I turned another year older. Back on March 18th, I had my 58th birthday. And unlike the previous 2 years, we went out for dinner to celebrate. So 2 years ago, it was on my birthday that our province declared a state of emergency, and we were not able to go out and eat out in restaurants. So we had ordered something in. And then last year, we did go out to eat on Cameron's birthday. And very shortly after that, he had COVID-19 symptoms. He discovered that one of his coworkers who he had spent time with prior to the weekend had COVID. Thankfully, he did not get COVID, but it kind of scared us a little bit. Like, we could have given it to our server or spread it out to someone else, and we thought, let's just wait till things die down a little before we do that again. And so on my birthday, we elected just to order dinner in again. So it was nice to go out to a restaurant. We've been to restaurants quite a bit now, but recently our capacity limits have been lifted, and so while we still need a vaccine passport to go to a restaurant, and that's ending pretty soon, I think in another week or two, but now it's full capacity. So we got dressed up. I put a dress on, wore some high heels, and we went and had dinner and a full bustling restaurant. It's been a long time since we've experienced that. So very, very nice time. Trying to think what else. Well, I've been looking after my 2 younger grandkids last week and this week, and I will be again tomorrow overnight till Friday. So last week had them Tuesday to Thursday, and I had them stay over. Just felt it was easier. Plus it was their parents' anniversary on Wednesday, so it was kind of a treat for them to go out for dinner and have the house to themselves. The teenager went and spent the night at one of her friends, so they had a little bit of a stay-home getaway. No kids, no responsibilities. So we've had a lot of fun. We've done some baking together and played some cards. One night we walked down to the elementary school that our kids all went to, but so did our older granddaughter and our grandson, because they lived for a little while closer to us. So they enjoyed playing on the playground. Some of the days weren't quite so nice, so we stayed home. But yeah, we've had a nice time with them. Looking forward to another couple of days. Today they're having a sleepover with their cousins. They're coming over to their place to stay. And so they're going to have lots of activities, even though Mom and Dad are working for the last couple weeks during the week. They've still gotten to do some special things. So yeah, so they'll arrive probably just after 8:30 tomorrow morning, and then Dad, I think, is going to pick them up Friday late afternoon when he gets off work. So that'll be fun. Last Friday was so great. My best friend came out for a visit. We have not seen each other since before COVID. We usually only manage to get together maybe once or twice a year. So it's always special. It's always like just real catch-up time. We've known each other since grade 2, so we figured out it's 51 years that we've been friends, and there's just that comfort level that just so easy to be together, and we can go years even without talking or seeing each other, and we just fall in so comfortably to our relationship. So it was so good to see her. And then that night, Matt and Stephanie had invited us for dinner. So originally they asked if we wanted to, sorry, I got something floating in my eye, probably some lint from the yarn. Originally, they asked if we wanted to just come over for appies and drinks on Friday night, and then they decided they had a new recipe that Stephanie had tried out, and they thought it would be a good one for company, so they asked if we wanted to come and have supper instead. So they did like a chicken that was stuffed with cream cheese and like peppers and asparagus. It was, and like herbs and garlic and stuff. It was very good. So we had a really nice evening with them. And then on Saturday, we got together with the three of my sisters that live close by with their spouses, and we four couples celebrated our winter and spring birthdays. So normally we do our winter birthdays after Christmas sometime, but because of our COVID restrictions this year, we couldn't get together for Christmas, and then we also couldn't get together to celebrate our winter birthdays. So now that we're able to gather, we decided to combine winter and spring. So the spring birthdays are me, Cameron, and then my sister who lives in Toronto. So if she happens to be out, we'll include her in there. If not, most of the time she's not here. But yeah, it was just nice. We did an appy night there. Just everyone brought something, had some cake, no candles, and just enjoyed being together for the first time since September. That was the last time we were all together, and that time my Toronto sister and brother-in-law were here. But yeah, the four couples hadn't been all together since September. So it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And besides that, we've just been watching a ton of curling. It was the Women's Worlds that ended last weekend. It took place in Prince George, BC. That's in northern British Columbia. It got canceled was supposed to be there in 2020. And the curlers were already arriving, and then it got canceled because of COVID. And it's too bad because my mom and my niece were actually going to be going up to see it, and then ended up having to cancel their trip. So last year they held them in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, in this bubble that they had sort of formed for various championships. And so they did reschedule it for Prince George this year. So that was kind of cool that it was local, not local, but local-ish, I should say, close to home-ish. It's about a 10-hour drive from here, but you know, it was in British Columbia, so that was kind of cool. And unfortunately, our Canadian team did not make the finals, the gold final, but they did win the bronze medal. So that was exciting to see. They had, this team was supposed to be in it 2 years ago, and were cheated out of a chance to play in the Worlds that year. So it was really cool for them that they got to do it last year, and then also this year, and kind of return to the scene of the crime, so to speak. So yeah, and then the Men's Worlds is coming up this coming weekend, and it's taking place in Las Vegas. So we'll be watching more curling too. I think that's it. I was thinking about my something good, and I think my something good for this week is just, and I've probably said this before in other episodes, but just the easing of restrictions and the opportunities to get a little bit more back to normal. So to go out for dinner on my birthday with like a full restaurant, and seeing my friend again, and all of our extended family getting together. It's so wonderful. And yeah, who knows what's around the corner with this new variant again. I do know cases are starting to rise again here in Canada in different places. Who knows, there may be more restrictions coming, but for now, just kind of enjoying a little bit more freedom. Our mask mandates ended. We still are wearing them when we're out in busy public places, but it's nice to have the option. And yeah, just the freedom to see friends and extended family again. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So on that happy note, I am going to say goodbye for another week. So I will be back here again. I don't think it'll be Wednesday. My husband starts ball again next week. That's another thing, getting back to normal. He hasn't played for 2 years. So I don't think it'll be Wednesday. It's probably going to be Tuesday or Thursday. So look for me midweek sometime next week. And until then, I hope you are well. I hope you stay well. Enjoy your crafting. So thanks as always for watching. Thanks as always for all of your messages. Some of you sent me birthday greetings. Thank you so much for those. Meant a great deal. So yeah, so take care until I see you again. Bye for now.